documentary that we're going to be reviewing is Take Care of Maya. I really did a deep dive on this. I did a lot of research, and I wanted to share that with you guys. It's caused quite an uproar. Anything having to do with children, abuse, there is obviously going to evoke a very emotional response from people. So the film follows the Kowalski family. By all appearances, a regular American family. Their daughter Maya develops CRPS. She really starts to deteriorate, and the family has really exhausted all of their resources. Maya eventually ends up taking ketamine on a regular basis. In October of 2016, they took Maya to Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital. She was complaining of stomach pain, not really doing well. According to the hospital, Beta, who was Maya's mother, was belligerent, and she was outright demanding high doses of ketamine. The doctors became suspicious of Beta and the family and felt like they were forcing this medication on her. Not sure if anyone else has seen the documentary Mommy Dead and Dearest. It's on HBO Max. If you haven't seen it, check it out. Gypsy Rose Blanchard, or Blanchard, however you want to pronounce it. But basically, she was a victim of Munchausen by proxy. Some more info on Munchausen by proxy, did a little bit of research. So, Munchausen syndrome was first described in 1951 to characterize individuals who intentionally produce signs and symptoms of a disease and who tend to seek medical or hospital care. Later in 1977, another doctor used the term Munchausen syndrome by proxy to describe children whose mothers produce histories of illness to their children and who support such histories by fabricated physical signs and symptoms, or even by altering laboratory tests. As an aside, Munchausen syndrome is named after Hieronymus Karl Friedrich Friar von Munchausen, who fought for the Russian Empire during the Russo-Turkish War of 1735 to 39. So apparently this guy, after he retired from the military, he became a minor celebrity within the German aristocratic circles for telling outrageous stories based on his military career. So basically the guy was full of baloney. The reason why I just went on that huge tangent about Munchausen by proxy and Munchausen syndrome itself, they thought that Beta, Maya's mother, actually had Munchausen syndrome by proxy, and that she was essentially poisoning her daughter in order to get emotional attention. They recommend the case to CPS. Child Protective Services prevents Beta and the family from having any contact with Maya. Later down the line, her father was able to visit her, but the mother was not allowed to have any contact with her. Eventually, she was able to talk on the phone with her, and even that was strictly monitored. Beta's concerns about her child's safety were further elevated when she found out that her daughter was being accompanied by a nurse who had previously been charged of child abuse. They held Maya down and they took photos of her body. Wherever she might have had any marks, bruises, or lesions. They wanted to capture that for the case in family court. This sounds like a nightmare, but trust me, the worst was yet to come for the family. 3 months after Maya was placed under state custody, Beta Kowalski, Maya's mother, she wrote a suicide note and eventually ended up killing herself. In the letter, what Beta says is that, in court earlier that day, she wanted to hug her daughter, Maya. They denied her the right to hug her own daughter. She wound up hanging herself in the garage where her son and her husband found her. 5 days after Beta's death, Maya's custody was handed over to her father, Jack Kowalski. So the Kowalskis, wanting justice, obviously had no other recourse but to take legal action. And so they filed a lawsuit against the hospital. I'm going to leave all of my sources in the description. So if you want to check out the sources, just click on the description in this video and you can read for yourself. 28 states in our nation have a privatized CPS. And I think when you incentivize certain outcomes with a profit motive, they can spell disaster. Prison system. another privatized government function that should not be privatized. You should not be incentivized to put people in prison. 28 states allow some degree of for-profit contracting of foster care services. Private companies make money off foster children, would have us believe that they are providing quality service at affordable rates. But evidence has shown that some of these for-profit services are rife with mismanagement and abuse. At one Michigan facility, teenager Cornelius Frederick died after he was violently restrained by staff for throwing a sandwich. An investigation of other facilities in Alabama, owned by the same company, uncovered horrific abuses, including violence at the hands of staff and children being forced to urinate in their rooms because they were unable to go to the bathroom. The reality is that privatization of foster care services has been a disaster for our nation's children. Not only does a privatized system offer little transparency or oversight, but the entire model operates under perverse financial incentives. Foster care contractors benefit from a steady flow of children into foster system, just as private prison contractors rely on the persistence of steady rates of crime and incarceration. She was the woman who was the CPS agent. Now, obviously the case had already been referred to her by the doctors and nurses, so there was already suspicion. But she really wasn't on the up and up. She omits everything the doctor says in the report to the judge for the hearing for Maya's custody. Here's a little bit more info on Sally Smith. As American Idol alumna Saisha Mercado fights to regain custody of her son, a petition has started to get Florida physician Dr. Sally Smith fired for her role in wrongfully accusing dozens of parents of abuse. Dr. Smith is the medical doctor for the Pinellas County Child Protective Services team and a contracted child abuse pediatrician at Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital and Bayfront Medical Center in St. Petersburg, Florida. A Change.org petition calls out Dr. Smith's history of wrongfully accusing parents of child abuse. A USA Today network investigation links Smith to hundreds of child abuse cases where parents were either proven innocent or suffered severe trauma due to her accusations. This woman has a history of doing this. And, as we see in the documentary, she ends up settling the case with the Kowalskis independently. Why isn't the state or the company doing anything about it? Clearly, she is wrongfully accusing people. If you're African American or Black, you're more than twice as likely to be investigated as a white family following an abuse report. Once in foster care, Black children are 2.2 times more likely to be placed in out-of-home care, away from the support of a loving family, and they stay in out-of-home care, on average, 55% longer than white children. Next on the list to discuss is Kathy Beatty. She was a social worker assigned to the case who took photos of Maya without her or her family's consent. She was the woman who held Maya down and had previously been accused of child abuse. She previously managed foster care children for the Suncoast Center for Community Health. While working for Suncoast, Beatty used harmful tactics for controlling a 10-year-old boy's behavior. According to the Tampa Bay Times, the outlet reported that Beatty grabbed the boy's head, causing him to fall down, and then placed both knees on the boy's chest. The boy reportedly told Beatty that he couldn't breathe, to which she replied, "Yes, you can," according to the affidavit. The other therapist on scene also reportedly covered the boy's face with a towel. Like, what are they doing to this kid? Are they waterboarding him? Like, why are you putting a towel over a kid's face and putting your knees on his chest? This is terrible. And this is a woman who the state and this private company have entrusted the care of thousands, potentially. Children, obviously. I found an article from 4 years ago. Parents in Michigan lost custody of their 6-week-old son after a doctor observed marks on the baby's abdomen and reported them as a diagnostic of physical abuse. A judge ordered the child and a sibling to be returned months later, however, after hearing evidence that the lesions were likely caused by the straps of a baby swing. So, this kid got some marks on his body from a swing. They went to the doctor, and they accused the parents of beating the crap out of their kid. Here's another case. A special education teacher in Florida and her paramedic husband were separated from their 4-month-old son after a doctor told child welfare workers that bleeding in the boy's brain must have been the result of violent shaking, but the doctor had overlooked an underlying medical cause. And in Washington state, 2 children were taken from their mother after a doctor reported that she had been abusing them with unnecessary medical treatments. The children were returned 14 months later when a judge ruled that most of the physician's testimony was without supporting factual basis. More than 300 families from 38 states following a year-long investigation highlighting the plight of parents accused of child abuse based on mistaken or overstated reports by doctors. I feel like everybody has their own opinion when it comes to, private versus public. You have a private company, their ultimate responsibility is to the shareholders, and not the patients or the children or the prisoners. Then obviously you're going to have some effed up outcomes. You wouldn't ever not want to have the post office there. We need to have certain things that are ran by the government. Starting with Reagan, when things started getting deregulated and privatized, I think we've had some serious miscarriages of justice. I'm, very open-minded. The point of this is to spur conversation, discuss the documentaries, and get some recommendations for some documentaries I haven't seen. Any recommendations, any comments, leave them all. I appreciate it. Subscribe. If there's any documentaries that you want me to review and discuss, you can leave that as well. I'm a doc fiend, so I thought maybe if there was a way to find other doc fiends, that would be a fun thing to do.